There. Can you hear me? I can sort of see your mouth moving, but I can't hear anything. I think you're probably still on mute locally. Can you hear me? Because I can't hear you. Let me make sure I don't have any audio blocked. It doesn't look like I do. I just shared controls with you just to see if that fixes the problem. Oh, this is why you don't go live before everything's right. It's all right, though. You wouldn't happen to be on a Mac, would you? Okay. Let's see. Let me make sure my sound's still working. Oh, there we go.
What happened?
I just heard you.
Oh, okay. I just unplugged the fancy microphone.
All right, good. Okay, so today I'm interviewing you on behalf of African Americans for Libertarianism and also just for my personal edification. My name is Kevin Minus, and Mark, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are, and then we can go forward.
My name is Dr. Marc Allan Feldman. I'm a practicing physician at the Cleveland Clinic. I'm a libertarian. I'm on the Libertarian Council Committee I'm the representative for Region 3, which is Indiana, Michigan, Kentucky, and Ohio. I'm also running for the Libertarian nomination for President of the United States.
Okay. All right, so I think that's pretty straightforward. So just so I can tell our viewers how I started interacting with Dr. Marc, let me make sure I show proper respect there.
Mark is fine. I lost you.
All right, can you hear me? Am I back now?
Yeah.
All right, sorry about that. I thought my browser crashed, but I accidentally hit the wrong window. But what I was doing when I interacted with him, I'm not entirely sure. I saw you on Facebook, and I believe I was just searching through some libertarian-oriented posts, and I happened to see that a post that you shared about, I believe it was about whether or not someone meant black when they said urban. And what struck me, to be honest, I was kind of surprised that someone would say that, at least in the libertarian space. That kind of stuff really doesn't come up a whole lot outside of, liberalism and some strains of conservatism. But what struck me and what made me say I have to interview this guy is when you started talking about intersectionality of the libertarian movement. I was taken aback, and I was highly surprised that one, that you actually used that particular word. That's not something that I've never heard of anyone outside of Kathy Rarowitz, I believe her last name is, and a few people on that sort of end of the libertarian spectrum say. And two, we started talking about what that meant to you. I was kind of surprised. And I saw some of the comments on that post, and they kind of went exactly the way I expected, but it was still interesting. So I'd like to talk to you. Let's start off with the hard stuff. What does that mean to you? Just because I know everyone who's watching this interview has not seen the Facebook post. And what do you think libertarians have to do? And do you think that that's something that can be achieved and still maintain libertarianism as a philosophy?
Well, there's different ways of approaching this in terms of background or causes and effects, or just from the statement of principles. Or I guess as a start, I'll just mention that a good way of introducing my position would be a article that I wrote, published on my blog in Times of Israel, called "Beyond White Libertarianism."
I saw that. Yeah.
Now, when I say white in that perspective, it isn't so much in terms of a race as opposed to terms like white noise or white light, where instead of focusing on the diversity and the different components of something, you blur and ignore the differences and treat it as if it was all homogeneous. So, for instance, certainly one would rather listen to a symphony where you can hear all the different instruments and their interactions than to hear all the sounds mixed together in one white noise. A rainbow is certainly much more interesting than simply white light, which has all the colors, but we ignore the differences because they're all mixed together. In libertarianism, because it is a reaction against centralized power, there is a history of ignoring power issues and strictly looking at freedom as such. There are people who talk about freedom as being the absence of control, the absence of having anyone who is over you, telling you what to do or controlling you. The point that I make in my article is when we talk about liberty, it's a combination of freedom and power. That if you don't have freedom, you don't have liberty. But if you have freedom but no power, you don't have liberty either. An example I give is if you're stuck at the bottom of a deep hole with slippery walls that you can't climb out. Well, there's no one who's oppressing you. There's no one who's controlling you. From that standpoint, you're completely free, but you have no liberty until you can get out of the hole.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean we should be forcing anyone or saying that it's anybody's legal government enforceable responsibility, but you need a ladder. And it is morally the right thing to do for somebody to voluntarily give you a ladder, and we should promote that. I've been accused of being a social justice warrior. I'll tell people that I'm a private, voluntarist social justice warrior. Yes, we have a responsibility to each other, and in fact, I think it's even more fundamental as a basis for the non-aggression principle. Why do we have a non-aggression principle? Why is it wrong to initiate force against another? Well, I think it comes from the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We don't want people to control us. We don't want people to aggress on us. So we should not aggress or initiate aggression against others. Now, what is the basis for the golden rule? Why is it wrong to initiate against others? Why is it wrong to do unto other people different than we would want them to do unto us? It's because we're all connected. We're all human beings, and we all have an underlying responsibility for each other. That doesn't mean that it should be a government enforced responsibility, just the opposite. Usually, government enforcement gets in the way of private voluntary responsibility. Mm-hmm. So we can go to more concrete things as things go on.
Well, so really quick, so you is the basis of your libertarianism NAP oriented? And I'll ask a follow-up question as soon as you're done with that.
Well, there are a lot of people who come from to the Libertarian Party from other parties looking for serious fiscal responsibility or serious social tolerance and liberty. I came from it from a different perspective. I was a non-voter for 50 years. It wasn't that I didn't care or I didn't know. I was an educated and engaged non-voter. I was born in Washington, D.C., raised in the D.C. area. I knew politicians, some of them personally, and there was never one I wanted to support. However, it got to the point where the Republican Party was so bad and the Democratic Party was so bad. I was looking for an acceptable option because at that point, just not voting wasn't good enough. And that's when I discovered the Libertarian Party, and seeing that not so much I was drawn to its principles first, I was drawn to the party first, and then realizing that the principles are what anchors it in the camp of liberty, so that they wouldn't just be talking about fiscal responsibility and social tolerance. Plenty of the other parties talk about it, but they actually do it. And the reason they do it is twofold. Number one is they believe in those principles. We believe in those principles. And second of all, they're not controlled by the multinational corporations and the super wealthy billionaires that are controlling the other parties.
Okay. Now, the reason why I was asking about the non-aggression principle is because I am probably one of, a few, and I'm probably the only person on my, or not my, but I co-admin the African American for Libertarians page, but I'm probably the only one who rejects the NAP as an all-encompassing principle for libertarianism for a couple of reasons, but mainly the reason is, first and foremost, I think you can get to libertarianism in a better fashion through more consequentialist arguments. And for me, if I was to sell libertarianism, or try to sell libertarianism to Black people in general, I wouldn't start off with the non-aggression principle. I would start off with a thorough reading of history, and from there look at the aggressions of the state, and from there suggest that the state has, and not just Black people, of course. This is true of all sorts of people, but in the platform that I've given, we're sort of tailored toward Blacks and African Americans. But I would just give them a thorough look at history and suggest that the state itself has been a source of aggression and oppression since its installment, really, since our introduction into American history. And from there, I would simply suggest that libertarianism is the logical choice, not necessarily because of the NAP, but because of a general mistrust of the state. And going back to why I have issues with the NAP, from what I have read and from the way I see it applied, it's mostly a property dispute tool, which relies on a very narrow definition of property and a very narrow definition of aggression, which is to violate the property rights of other people. And this will all connect to something we talked about before. Like with Black Lives Matter, a lot of the things that they're talking about wouldn't necessarily be violations of property rights in and of themselves. Like, for an example, there's conversation about issues with raising your children, right? So being able to...
I'm gonna interrupt you. I apologize just for a minute.
Go ahead.
I think it's getting a little bit off track insofar as I think we can agree that the non-aggression principle is not about property. That is a overly narrow definition. And I think that if you look at what people mean by aggression, I would say that the vast majority of people understand that to use your power to deny someone access to resources that they need. So they could get those resources, but you are positively acting to block their access to those resources because of their race or national origin, color, or religion is an aggression. That is an aggression. Discrimination is not just a thought in the mind. Discrimination is an act in the real world that deprives people of their lives, liberty, and property. So it's clear to me that the prejudicial discrimination as an act in the real world is an aggression. How significant it is, it depends, as you say, is on the consequences.
Right.
So, and this is again where I disagree. There are libertarians, a small section, who feel that there is a right to discriminate. And what I say is that, I don't need people to agree with me 100%. In fact, people who agree with me 100%, if I ever found them, would make me nervous because I want people to think for themselves. I am all about empowerment. Again, half of liberty is power. And if you want people to be empowered, that means they have to think for themselves. That means they have a right to be pro-life. They have a right to be pro-choice. They have a right to whatever their beliefs are. The point is that we need to come together as a coalition, not a cult, and say, let's work together to fight together to what we all agree is the wrong direction. And we can fight about the other issue some other time. Otherwise, we don't have any power to do anything. And these issues are not issues by accident. These are promoted to be issues. These divisive issues are there to divide the population so that we can't unite to fight oppressive government. People were asking me, on your website, you don't talk about the issues. I said, sure, I talk about the issues. I talk about empowerment. I talk about balancing the budget. I talk about people having control over their own lives. Those are the important issues. You want to talk about abortion and these other things. Well, I'm never going to have an abortion. And frankly, I don't know what the mind of God is. I don't know whether I don't know, as Penn Jillette said, my whole take on libertarianism is I simply don't know what's right for other people. So I'm about empowerment. I want pro-life people to be able to promote their views as much and with as much power and persuasion as they can. And I want pro-choice people to be able to do the same thing. So what I say is that libertarian stands on two principles, two axioms, if you like. One is the non-aggression principle, which I interpret fairly broadly, but only as an ethical principle. It's not a political principle. It doesn't tell you what to do. It just tells you what not to do. It also doesn't say what you should make other people do. It's just non-aggression means you don't initiate force. So that is the ethical principle. And then the other side I call the positive empowerment principle. That is, as libertarians, our goal should be to maximize the power that people have to control themselves, their property, and their environment, as long as they're not infringing on the rights of others. Now, how does this go to intersectionalism? Well, just take out individual and put in some quality of the individual that they use their right of free association to be part of a community. So if it's the community of women, we're talking about maximizing the power of women to control themselves, their property, and their environment, as long as they're not infringing on the rights of others. That's the definition of feminism. If you put in the Black community, it's the right of Blacks to control themselves, their property, and their environment, as long as they're not infringing on the rights of others. That's Black Lives Matter. So we should not just be the party for liberty. We should also be the party of feminism, the party of marriage equality, the party of Black Lives Matter, the party of Hispanic educational opportunity. Every group should be able to have the power to affect their environment to the maximum.
Yeah, and I can see why you get called the social justice warrior for that. And personally, I agree with you. And the only caveat that I would state is that you said that you believe that there's a small amount of libertarians who sort of read the non-aggression principle that narrowly. In the interactions that I've had with libertarians online and in person, I don't think that number is all that small. Of course, your interactions might give you a different kind of perspective. I certainly accept that. I mean, it's anecdote versus anecdote here, right? But
no, that's not quite right. I have to tell you, I'm a numbers guy. I'm very quantitative in my approach. After I finished medical school, I got a degree in health policy and management, health finance and management. I know analysis of variance. I know how to make surveys. I was the lead researcher on the study of medical testing for cataract surgery, a prospective randomized study of 19,000 procedures to look at the effects of preoperative testing on postoperative outcome. So I know about measuring outcomes. And when you talk about, when I say that it's small, I'm not talking about comments on Facebook. I'm talking about numbers of people. And you get some idea, one of the things that libertarians really need to do, what we need to do to be successful, is we have to get out of this political echo chamber where we're only talking to each other. Now, I want to get back to one point that you said about libertarians and the Black community. And I think, first of all, very important, as you know, that the Black community is not uniform.
Absolutely. Yep.
And my goal as a libertarian is to look at two groups in the Black community. One are the Democratic voters, and the other are the non-voters. Now, there are other groups. There are some Republicans. There are some other Greens, etc. But those are two pretty large groups: the Democratic voters and the non-voters.
Yep.
I'm not really interested in reaching out to Democratic voters. They, Blacks had to fight, as you know, for the right to vote for a long time. I'm not going to tell them how they should be using their vote. If they think that sure, the last 8 years have not been perfect, but if they truly believe that things are better now with President Obama than they would have been with anybody other than Barack Obama, there really isn't evidence to prove that one way or another, nor would I really try. It would be very, very difficult, I think, to try to convince people who are dedicated and feel that they are supporters and members 100% for the Democratic Party to do anything else. But there is a large group of non-voters who really feel that neither the Democratic Party or the Republican Party really has their interests at heart. They see both the Democratic Party, who is spending $2 billion on this election, and the Republican Party, who's spending $2 billion in their election, are not really interested in people who don't have a certain amount of money. I am interested in people who don't have a certain amount of money. And I was a non-voter for many years, so I think I understand that point of view from my own personal experience. So this is the group who I think we could really have the outreach and potential success, is not convincing Democratic voters to switch to Libertarian, but to convince non-voters that they will send a much better message by voting Libertarian than by staying home. This also gets out of the concerns that we're stealing Democratic votes or acting as spoilers. We want to get people who have been nominated, people who feel that the Democrats and the Republicans are not good enough to get our support, that they need to do better to come and vote Libertarian. And there's enough people right now who are saying that voting Libertarian is like not voting at all. So if you're not going to vote, why don't you not vote by voting Libertarian?
Yeah, so really quick, first of all, I think that was an excellent point. I think, well, one caveat to your, well, not really a caveat, just a comment. I think it might be easier to reach Democratic voters than you might suspect. Now, this is something where we're not talking about Facebook posts anymore. I am talking about people, out in the field. I think that there is an idea of liberty and protection that sort of motivates the more adamant Democratic voters. And I think that it would merely take, I mean, I don't think they're going to be able to switch every single Democratic voter over, but it would merely take just some analysis and some just looking at how policies have impacted us and the world as a large in order to get them sort of on our side. Now, going back, I would be kind of curious. I hate to beat the dead horse here, but I'd be kind of curious to see how you were able to quantify that size of that size of the amount of strict naptarians, if you want to call them that way. If you have done that, or if so, or if not, rather, how you would do that.
Well, if you're looking in terms of the libertarians who are, well, people who we would say are active libertarians out in the community, we're talking about roughly 10,000 people. There are, you could talk more or less, but there are 10,000 people who feel strongly that they want to vote libertarian. They may not show up at the state conventions, they may not come to events, but at least when it comes to voting, they vote libertarian. Now, where I go for is I have experience with certainly at least 1,000 of the libertarians who are at the conventions. I went to about 10 or 11 of the state libertarian conventions in 2015. So I do get to meet a fair number, and this does come up. And then you look at somebody like Austin Peterson, who makes a big point of rejecting the non-aggression principle, and yet he has his libertarian websites, and you can see how much support he gets versus how much disagreement. And it's interesting to see, a very few people can make a big difference. And when you talk about when you talk about, I could probably end up naming at least a third of people who you've had experiences with who feel very strongly about the non-aggression principle. It's not that large a community.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would certainly defer to, you probably have more information about that than I do, for sure. I've only been to a few of the libertarian meetings, but most of my my interaction with libertarians has been online. Um, but of that, I mean, obviously that could be a terrible sample, but of that, it has not been a small number. Although I would say that some of the libertarians that I tend to gravitate towards have been more left oriented, I would say, or at least they've been called left oriented as a pejorative or something like that, or a social justice libertarian, as you said you've been called. And I guess I've never actually been called that, but I personally do identify with some of the what has been called the left oriented libertarian aspects, although some of their economic stuff is just not for me. But as far as the the spirit, so to speak, like the caring about, feminism and I guess social justice, that's been something that has shaped my libertarianism, so to speak, or my expression of libertarianism.
I'll give you an example in terms of an issue that comes up about equality of opportunity versus equality of consequences. And one of the things I say is that, are you still there?
Yeah, sorry about that. Still here.
That wasn't a comment. So anyone going into a casino should have the same odds of winning on any particular bet. And there's no guarantees of outcome when they come out. But if there's one group of people who lose every single time they go to the casino, and another group and all they're playing are slot machines, and you have another group who also are only playing slot machines, but they always win. You know that there's something going on, because random chance just doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. So it's not that we need to make sure that we're having the same consequences for every individual, but we have to recognize that if there's a group of people who is seeing a different group of consequences on a regular basis, and that's causing losses of life, liberty, and property, then there's something going on. Mm-hmm. And it's not random chance. And we need to address that. It's important for us to address that because the value of people is the same. Now, does that mean there needs to be a government law? No. Government laws usually make things worse. So then we get to the standpoint. I'd like to skip a little bit to what the answer is. So what is my answer to these issues? And I've published what I call the balance and credit plan. So this is a fiscal tax plan that provides both opportunities and empowerment to all individuals while limiting government at the same time. It's very simple. Number one, balance the budget and keep it balanced. And that's getting easier all the time because the president and Congress don't get along. They haven't been able to have any new programs, and the budget's getting closer and closer to balance. We're only about 12% over budget at this point, and there's enough Democrat and Republican proposals already out there to balance the budget in one day if we wanted to. So balance the budget and keep it balanced. Number two, change all charitable deductions from deductions to taxable dollar for dollar. This is something which is in the Libertarian Party platform. It's been there for a long, long time because it encourages and builds the private social safety nets. Now, the cool part comes when you combine these two initiatives, because if you're going to balance the budget and keep it balanced, and you're going to give people dollar for dollar tax credits, with the large increase in charitable donations, you're going to have to cut the government in order to keep the budget balanced. But now we know where to cut government. we can cut government from those same areas that people are donating privately. So if people are donating privately to educational institutions, then we cut the government support for educational institutions. If people are donating to support healthcare organizations, we can cut government support for healthcare. And as long as the private initiatives are as efficient and effective as government or more, you can cut government dramatically without reducing benefits to anybody.
Okay.
And the cool thing is, I think, from a presidential standpoint, is this is something the president can do, and I think with or without Congress. Frankly, if we get a presidential candidate who runs on this platform and gets elected, Congress will fall right in line. As you know, that campaign season starts as soon as the polls close. So if once Congress sees what the will of the people is, it's hard for them to go diametrically opposed to it.
Okay. So I have one more question for you. So you're a member of the LP party in Ohio. What I'd like to know is, do you think that it would be more effective for the LP party in Ohio to focus on statewide positions, such as, representative or a state senator, in countywide positions as well as city positions, versus running for president? Or do you think that's less effective for getting the message out?
Well, I look at it this way. I was having a discussion with one of the leaders in the Republican Liberty Coalition, and we were telling each other why we didn't think the other one could possibly succeed. So, I let him know that the problem in being a libertarian in the Republican Party is that you get in the way of making money, and the Republican Party runs on money. The campaigns get more and more expensive. Money is power, and the way you get money is by having government control over sections of the economy and being able to pay back those favors for the campaign contributions. Libertarians cutting government are cutting the pocketbook of the Republicans. So Republicans are happy to talk about more government, are happy to talk about liberty, but when push comes to shove, if you really plan on doing that, you're going to get eliminated. People who think that Rand Paul is not doing well because he's not libertarian enough, there is no way the established Republican Party, or even the less establishment part, could let someone like Rand Paul succeed. It goes against the DNA of the party.
Absolutely.
So he turned around and said, okay, you have a point there. But let me tell you why the Libertarian Party cannot succeed. Because whatever the Libertarian Party achieves on any issue, whether it's gun control, marriage equality, marijuana legalization, civil asset forfeiture, whatever it is, if it starts to get some traction with the public, as soon as it does, the Republican Party can jump on right in front of it, and because they have so much more money, they can do it bigger and louder and with more media, that it will seem like they invented it.
Absolutely.
So that there is no local issue or national issue that the Libertarian Party can succeed on. So I asked him this question: what about my proposal for ending the corruption in campaigns by not voting for billionaire candidates? I've got a $5 maximum on donations. What if that starts having traction with the public? What if I start getting 2%, 3%, 5%, 7%, 10% approval, and people who are really interested in having a $5 maximum on campaign contributions? Can the Republican Party get in front of that? And he thought for a second and quietly said, I don't think so.
Right.
So I think that is where our opportunity is. And that's why I don't call my campaign Feldman for Liberty or Feldman for President. I call it Votes Not for Sale, because that's what I'm about. We have a Democratic Party that's based on money. We have a Republican Party that's based on money. We have 100 million voters in this country, excuse me, 100 million non-voters in this country who don't want to support any of that. I want to give them something they can support. Show that their votes are not for sale, not by staying home, but by voting for a candidate that is not corrupted. And in a sense, I think this was part of the Bernie Sanders support. And I think it's a lot of the, but where the big potential is in the non-voters.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely agree with you with the Bernie Sanders energy, so to speak. Again, people on Facebook and off Facebook seem to have this idea that Sanders is the guy who's going to buck the establishment, and I really don't think it's going to be the case, but especially with his voting record. But he's voted well on some things and voted poorly on a lot of other stuff, so it's fine though. But anyway, go ahead if you had something.
Well, but it's just a touch of Bernie Sanders. You know, I think he's a very intelligent guy. I think I have a lot of respect for all of his years as an independent. However, when he said at the beginning of his campaign that he would support whoever the Democratic Party nominated, that's when it was clear to me that he has basically sold out to the $1 billion Democratic Party, and that's where he won't be able to see just because he can't.
Right. Yeah, that was. A lot of people tried to compare him to Ron Paul, and I know a lot of former Ron Paul supporters that are supporting him now. But when he said that he would support anyone, yeah, I knew what was going to happen, and plus the way he sort of acted in the debates as far as covering for Clinton, and just it was really sad. But whatever, I'm not voting for him either way, so it's all good.
I want to get back to loop back for a moment to really one of the central points in terms of the Black community. Mm-hmm. And when I say I'm about empowerment, I'm talking about empowerment of the individual. And what that means to me is that the solutions to the problem of the Black community are not going to come from the white community. They're going to come from the Black community. And one person I have a lot of respect for, a lot of what he said, is Malcolm X, and he believed in Black nationalism. And in a sense, I agree. I think that we need to have a sense that there is a Black nation that needs to take care of the Black community. And when we think of states, I like to think of America not just being geographic states, but that we have separate political states. We have people who live in a pro-life state. That is the most important thing to them. They have their community. This is what they want to vote for. This is what they want to support. We have a pro-choice state. We have a Black state. We have a pro-Israel state. And we have pro-Palestinian state. Anything which is an issue you could think of as being a separate state. And now think of us as being the United States of America. Not just united geographic states, but also united political states. That we all have the freedom to promote our own agendas, and we all have sovereignty over ourselves. Because, when we talk about democracy, democracy shouldn't be the tyranny of the majority. Democracy should be government by the will of the people. So if people are all putting their money together and 60% of them decides what to do with it, well, that's democratic for that 6% and democratic for the 40%. But if they all agree to let everybody keep their money and spend their money on what each of them wants to spend it on, that's democratic for 100%. And that's what I mean by empowerment, what's what I mean by democracy, and what I mean by libertarianism, is to bring the power away from government and back to the individual to use that power either for themselves or for their community, because that's what they know the most about, and that's what they care the most about.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the Black nationalists. I've had conversation with Pan-African nationalists before about libertarianism and real republicanism, not the Republican Party. And what was funny to me was I was listening to this particular guy talk, and I'm like, okay, you're a Republican, and I'm not talking about the GOP, but you are in fact a Republican, and you believe in libertarianism. I mean, that's what you believe, but you're not viewing it that way because you're viewing it from a different lens. But you believe in, in basically individuals being able to control their own destiny, and you are against state aggression. Like, you could vote for the Libertarian Party right now if you really wanted to. And I think you might want to consider that. But a lot of those guys are like apolitical or outside of the system, which is fine too. But that does add to the problem of, like you said, 100 million non-voters and basically being ruled by a minority of people who are ultimately very much balkanized against each other by these wedge issues, which ultimately don't really matter a whole lot. But yeah, that was.
Well, I think it's important. One of the important issues for liberty is to at least have the potential for people to be engaged and empowered. I'm against concentrated power, but I have less of a problem with the idea of a state. I can imagine in my mind a king who has absolute power, and every decision that he makes automatically gets done, with one exception, is that he can't have a personal protective service. And if the people wanted to at any time, they could storm the castle, take him out, beat him, and kill him. Well, I think that every decision, even though he has a lot of power, would be made with his subjects in mind, because in the back of his mind, he understands that if he ever tries to control the population against their will, he's history. So that degree of engagement of the population is critically important, and it's something that I think Jefferson really understood very well, at least for the part of the population that he considered people. But engagement is critical, and voters don't like politics, that they're not engaged. I don't think that's true. I think they don't like the current political system. But for instance, if you look at one very good example is in the Puerto Rican population. Puerto Ricans who live in Puerto Rico, or Barracuans, I think they prefer Barracuans, they vote 90% of the time. When they move to the United States, it's not immigration because they're already citizens.
Right.
When they move to the United States, they vote 9% of the time.
Wow.
Now, did they suddenly become uninterested in politics? Did they suddenly become lazy, uninterested? No. They don't have anyone they feel who represents them. Not the Republican Party, not the Democratic Party. And so I think that if we, now there's one other issue that I want to get to. I apologize if I'm running long.
No, go ahead.
Because this is something very critical when it comes to the 100 million. There's three things. Well, what I need to do in my mind to have success with the non-voters, number one is to convince them that I care about them and that I really want to represent their interests. And I need to show them that I'm authentic. Now, I think having the $5 maximum helps with that. It shows that I'm authentic. It shows that I care. It shows that I want any poor person who could scrape up $5 could be my biggest donor, basically. So yes, you always care about your biggest donors. They could be my biggest donors. Now, the part is the other step is to getting people to value themselves, to realize they have the power to make a difference and they deserve to have that power. I have a fellow told me, he goes, yeah, you say you want my vote. The other guys say they want my vote, and then they kick us to the curb after the election. Why are you different? I say, I have a $5 maximum. They're getting their money from the big banks and the oil companies. I'm getting my money from you guys. So you know that I'm different. So he was kind of shocked by that. He's like, okay, that's impressive. But here's the thing. You want me to support you. You want me to let you represent me, but I don't even believe in myself. I have warrants. I don't have a good job. I didn't get far in school. I don't have a car. I have to borrow money from my family, my friends, just to pay the bills. Why would I want to support someone who would want to represent somebody like me? it's as if a lot of this racism, prejudice, and discrimination has been internalized. And I think, when I say Black Lives Matter, I'm not just talking about mass incarceration, police brutality. I'm also talking about gang violence and crime and police neglect. So it's this idea that their lives matter. Now, how can I get people to understand they have that power and they deserve that power? I don't think I can do it, frankly. And I'm looking for, perhaps with a roommate, somebody who is from that community, who has made himself, who can get that message that says, look at me, I care about you, I care about my running mate, we want to represent you, and if I can make it, you can make it, and you deserve to make it. So I'm looking for it. Who would be my top choices? Kanye West said that he wants to run for president in 2020. I'd offer him to see if he'd be interested in a VP spot. If you know anybody, pass the word. Oprah, maybe somebody who really wants to get this message about self-esteem, about value. You can take a $20 bill and you can crumple it all up. You can drop it on the ground, stomp on it, and rub it in the dirt and make it as stomped on and dirty as you want. It's still worth $20. And the same thing with people. Doesn't matter how ground you are, how dirty you've gotten, or how many problems you have. You are worth one human life, every single person, and you deserve to have the power to control yourself, your property, and your environment, as long as you're not infringing on the rights of others.
Absolutely. I agree. You should want to look at you might want to look at Cornel West or something like that. Take a wild guess. I know he's pretty left wing, probably more so than you might be able to stomach, but I think he has that understanding of class issues, and at one point he held a lot of power. I'm not sure exactly how much power he holds now, but his name still rings bells, I suppose. But definitely someone really from the rags to riches story, and someone who's made it would be an excellent choice. Okay, so I am just about out of time here. So if you want, please go ahead and plug all your websites and how we can reach you, and what your next steps are on your candidacy.
Well, it's my campaign site is www.votesnotforsale.com. All letters, no numbers in there. I'm on Facebook, Votes Not For Sale, or my personal website, Marc Allan Feldman, M-A-R-C. Allan is with 2 A's and 2 L's, A-L-L-A-N, Feldman. And I'm on Twitter at Votes Not For Sale.
Excellent. I'm actually looking up the site now, and I just hit like, and I'll have to shoot you over $5 in a little bit here. So
you'll be my biggest donor.
I appreciate your time. Thanks a lot for coming to speak to me. I know I had to push this back for you, with you in a couple of times, and I appreciate you just making time in your schedule. I wish you the best of luck. For me personally, I'm very interested in seeing or watching your candidacy take shape. Hopefully you can get a hold of Austin and come together, and you can run, one of you can run as president and one of you can run as VP, so we can get all of the libertarians galvanized under this one big banner. Have you talked to Gary Johnson, by the way? I saw that he decided he was going to run like last week or something like that.
Oh, we could talk. I try to only say nice things about other candidates. I was a supporter. I was actually the Ohio director of OAI, Gary, he and I again are going after different constituencies. He's going through the liberty movement, the marriage equality, the gun rights. certainly marijuana legalization, and marijuana has been a big business for him. But I don't think he appeals to the non-voters. And I was hoping to hear some new ideas, what he had learned from his first run, and whether he felt strongly that he could do better. It seems like he's mostly talking about lowered expectations.
So from my perspective of his campaign and really just his platform, I agree with what you said. And I also think it's like he's going after Republicans who are going towards libertarianism like this. And I was actually I'm sort of on that boat, so to speak, in some ways. Whereas, like, you were a Ron Paul supporter, and you just got disgruntled by the GOP, and now you're looking at the next logical step. And it seems like you're coming actually to the left of him, to be honest. But I think that's a good thing. I'm not using that as a slur, but I think you're coming to the left of him, and I think that's a very good thing. And I wish you all the best of luck. And I'll shoot you over $5. Hopefully, if you get around to having something in Cincinnati, we can meet in person, or if I'm in the Cleveland area, we can meet in person. Maybe I'll actually I'll have a conversation with the Butler County Libertarian Party head. I haven't talked to those people in a little while and see what's going on. But again, thanks a lot for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.